Hey folks, welcome. Dave Brannon here, ready for another day of talking to Dave Brannon about employment and disability law. It's the live show here. I'm a lawyer at Resolute Employment and Disability Lawyers. We got an interesting topic today. I don't pick the topics. There's another Jen in our support team. She picks the topics for me. So she's got a doozy one today. Autism in the workplace, knowing your rights, and disability benefits explained. It's an interesting one. We do get a lot of questions about this. So if you or you know someone who's an adult with autism who is wondering what your rights are, and if you are struggling in the workplace, then we're going to cover that issue here today. And I'll talk about what your general rights are and some things to think about if you're looking to apply for any type of disability benefit. Okay, so let's move in here. We'll follow up this, like always, we'll follow up this conversation with, I'll take questions from everyone after we cover this. But please go ahead and put your questions in the chat and I will get to them. I see we've already got some questions coming already. I'll get to those right after I get through this topic. So let's start with your legal rights at work. Autism in Canada, generally speaking, is recognized as a type of disability. That means your employer does have a duty to accommodate you. And accommodation means they must make reasonable adjustments to help you succeed at work, unless doing so would cause them undue hardship. So what does this mean in practice? It could be things like giving you written instructions instead of verbal instructions, allowing flexible or modified schedules, providing a quieter workspace to reduce sensory overload, or it could be like adjusting communication in meetings, things that allow you to interact and be more successful in the workplace if you're struggling with any kind of disability related to autism. So what your employer is not required to do is eliminate the essential duties of your job or accept unlimited costs in order to accommodate you. It has to essentially be the same job, and if they can make non-essential changes to help you succeed, that is what they're required to do. It's the same rules for any other medical condition. Autism is a bit different because of the type of many people with autism can be quite high functioning. So there is a spectrum there where we have to figure out what level of disability do you have and what would you need in order to be more successful in the workplace. Okay, so those are some of the examples that I gave. Now, for CPP disability is focused on whether you have a severe and prolonged disability that makes you incapable of any type of work, essentially. Any type of work where you would be capable of earning about $20,000 a year. So the autism would need to be severe in nature that even with accommodations, you couldn't hold down a job making like $20,000 a year or so. So just think about that. Strong medical evidence is going to be the key there to explain how the autism doesn't allow you to function in a workplace and why that there there's no accommodations or further treatment that would help fix that. Okay. If you, the thing is, to get CPP disability, you would have had to have already been in the workforce for at least 4 years, and then at some point be unable to do so anymore. So in the case of autism, you'd have to explain why you were able to function enough in the workplace in order to contribute to CPP disability for at least 4 years or more, but are no longer able to do so. Again, that will come down to medical evidence and explaining why the symptoms are worsening and not improving. Now, for long-term disability, that's a little different. You don't need to have been employed as long to qualify for long-term disability. In most cases, you will have to have been employed at a job for at least a year before you can apply for disability benefits. And again, the focus will be on what is it about the symptoms of autism that are preventing you from working now, whereas over the last year or more, you were able to work. Those would be the things that they will focus on. Again, it's focused on your ability to do the core functions of your job for the first 2 years. Then after 2 years of long-term disability, you'd have to provide evidence that you couldn't do any other job that would allow you to earn a similar income that you're receiving from long-term disability. Now, with autism, insurance often look whether you've worked before. And again, they will focus on this idea that if you've been able to work in the past with autism, you should be able to in the future. Autism is a unique condition. I'm not an expert on it, but it is not necessarily one that's going to worsen over time. If anything, people can function better over time as they learn to accommodate and adjust to autism. So this will be a situation where you have to explain why you could work in the past, but not now. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer for that, but it would come down to medical evidence and your own explanation of why that is the case. All right, so some practical tips. Practical tips here. If you are experiencing changes in your ability to work or workplace challenges, document what they are. That will help you when you're requesting accommodations. You'll be able to point to, here's when I'm successful in the workplace and here's when I'm not successful. If you're able to document and explain, here are the situations where I need accommodation, is very helpful. So medical support is critical. You will need a doctor's you need a doctor to confirm that you have been struggling with this and how it limits you from working, the symptoms of autism, and what can happen to help you succeed. Again, whenever you're requesting accommodations, the doctor needs to do it, and they have to be very specific about what is needed. It can't just say, I need more help. You need to give examples of what type of changes can happen in the workplace that are not fundamental changes, but that are easy enough changes that the employer can implement without having undue hardship that would allow you to succeed. Those would be the main things. Important not to quit the job until you get legal advice, because again, it's important to figure out if there is going to be an issue of undue hardship or not, and if the employer has done everything necessary in order to meet that standard. It's not an easy standard for them to meet, but again, with autism, it's a little trickier because again, this is a chronic situation that people are in. And it doesn't necessarily always get worse over time, like many other conditions. So it is unique in how you'll have to present it to the insurer. Now, just having a diagnosis of autism will not automatically get you any type of disability benefit, whether that be CPP disability, long-term disability, or even something like the disability tax credit. It depends whether you're approved, depends on whether you have the capacity to work at your own job, or in the case of CPP disability, any other job. Now, the other myth is that if you're worried if the employer finds out you have autism, that you could be fired. Employers are not allowed to discriminate against you because you have a condition or diagnosis of something like autism. They have a duty to accommodate you up to undue hardship. And if they fire you because the fact that they find out that you have autism, that is discrimination, and you have rights to file a legal claim against them, claiming loss of income and other damages like that. Okay, so just to recap, you do have rights. Autism is recognized as a disability in Canada, but that doesn't automatically entitle you to benefits. You have to show what accommodations you may need at work. And if work is not possible, even with accommodations, CPP disability and long-term disability are two areas where you may be able to get disability benefits. These are difficult cases, I won't lie, but they are winnable in the right circumstances. So just keep that in mind. With that, I'm going to dive into some questions from people who are on the stream here. So let's start with this one. Let's have a look what it says. If insurance send assessment and missed that assessment as a problem of focus and memory problem, now insurance requested pay full amount any way by law to help about this. Okay, so it looks like you were scheduled for an independent medical assessment and then you missed it due to forgetting about it or whatever. They're saying they want you now to pay for the assessment. I assume that's what they're saying, that you have to pay for it because you missed it. This is a difficult one, honestly. It's probably unlikely that the insurer will be able to force you to pay for the assessment that you missed, but they could stop your benefits because you didn't attend an assessment. The only way they would be able to require you to pay for it is if that's written in your insurance policy, or it's a policy of the workers' compensation system or something like that, that if you miss the appointment, you have to pay for it. Or if you sign some agreement to that effect, like when you agreed to attend this assessment, if they got you to sign some paperwork that said you'd be liable to pay if you don't show up. They do have a problem with people not showing up to these assessments for various reasons. And so insurers do that is why they will be punitive like this and try to get you to pay for it. See, if when you don't show up to these assessments, the bill still has to be paid to the doctors. The doctors are extremely busy and booked up. So if you don't show up and pay, if someone doesn't pay for the assessment you had, the doctor is losing out on that money. And so the doctors will still charge the insurance company whether you show up or not, because they lost the opportunity to have someone else fill that spot. So again, this will just be a dispute between you, and if this is an insurance company, I would assume, then it would boil down to it's unlikely that they can force you to pay for it, but they can also stop paying your benefits or refuse to pay your benefits because you missed this appointment. It does put you in a very difficult spot, and that's the advice I can give you. So, yeah. Unfortunately, it is an unfortunate to miss something like this. Obviously, there's nothing you can do about it now, but I always encourage people to do everything possible not to miss it. But obviously, things like this can happen. Ultimately, this thing would have to be rebooked. And so maybe the insurance company is willing to rebook it, but only if you pay for this missed assessment. So this may come down to a situation where the practical thing is for you to pay for the missed assessment as long as they redo the assessment, or offer to pay for part of it. That is probably what you're looking at in a case like this. All right, we got another question here. It says, "Hi, David. Does Resolute Legal offer free consultations for employment matters related to LTD? If so, do your staff do the consults, or does it take a long time to get an appointment?" Okay, so we're constantly changing how we do things. So how it works with free consultations, and we do offer a limited consultation with our staff. So we have staff who are not lawyers. They can't give legal advice, but what they're able to do is review the situation and kind of give you the different options on whether it's a case we'd be able to represent you in, or if it's sometimes if it's simple answers, they're able to answer it. That doesn't get into kind of a legal advice situation. Sometimes it's just they're able to answer it without needing to give legal advice. But if it's truly you need legal advice around a legal issue, then we do offer paid consultations, and the staff can explain what the different levels of prices and things like that. I don't like quoting prices here because things change over time and people could watch this video in the future. So I would encourage you just to call in and or email in or do the chat, and they will kind of give you the range of what the options are. But that is what it would be. So it could be a bunch of things. When you call in, you talk to our support team first, because we get like hundreds and hundreds of calls a week. So they can't all go to me or another lawyer. So a lot of the calls, the staff are able to deal with them quickly because there's nothing we can do in some cases. If it's a case that it's within our realm of what we could work on, they'll let you know, like, could we give you a consultation on this? If yes, here's what it would look like. Okay, this one says, "We'll be getting a passport renewed and traveling. Will getting a passport renewed and traveling raise eyebrows for my insurance? I have a mental health disability." So, Jason, not necessarily. Um, well, let me back that up. Like, there's no real issue. I don't have an issue in recommending people travel while on long-term disability. Certainly, it can raise eyebrows with the insurance. I won't deny that. They are always they always are kind of negative at looking at people who are taking a vacation or going anywhere. Okay. I don't know what it is, but they are the honest answer is that yes, they will always be suspicious of that. But if you handle it properly, there's not really anything they can do. There's nothing unreasonable about you taking a vacation or traveling as long as the timing is right. Like you wouldn't want to do it if you've just applied for long term disability and you're in like the first week, probably not the right time to travel because the focus then should be on your treatment and things like that. But if you're further into a claim, it's you're not in the critical first weeks of being on a claim and in the middle of treatment and this kind of thing. There's no reason you can't travel for short periods of time as long as your doctor is okay with it. If you want to be really cautious, then what you would do is have your doctor write a note saying that they've reviewed your situation. There's no issue with you traveling. It's within your abilities and it's not going to affect your treatment in any way. If you wanted to really cover things off, that's what you would do. You don't have to do that. You should also check your long term disability policy to see what it says about traveling. Sometimes the policy does require you to notify the insurer if you're going to be traveling. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they'll say, notify us if you're going to be out of the country for more than 4 weeks or whatever. So just take a look at what your policy says about travel and make sure you comply with that. Okay, perfect, Sherry. You can call in then if you have questions. Excellent. Excuse me. We are a firm that does both disability and employment, so we're very good at any case where there's a crossover of employment issues with long-term disability issues. I started out mostly focused on long-term disability, but there is such an overlap of employment issues with long-term disability issues that the firm over time morphed into doing more and more employment cases to the point now where we will take on employment cases that don't have anything to do with disability. Certainly, my favorite cases to do are employment cases that overlap with some type of disability issue. But excuse me, that's we will still do employment cases. The thing that the focus of our firm at this point is on we only represent people, individuals, workers, and we'll only do cases that involve disability benefits or workplace like discrimination, workplace termination of benefits at work, benefits, termination of employment at work, that kind of thing. We don't do employment for businesses or giving business advice, that kind of stuff. It's all just representing employees who have claims against their employer for workplace discrimination, uh, wrongful termination of employment, not enough termination pay, all that kind of stuff. Okay, great questions. I don't know why I got a little cough going on here. Excuse me. Okay. Keep those questions coming if you have them. I'm going to go take a quick look over at our disability forum. See, answer some questions over there. Let me just share my screen. There we go. There it is. So we got a question here about LTD and retraining. Okay, this will be an interesting one. Let's go see what they're asking about here. Okay. Okay, long one here. So let's have a look here what they're saying. I experienced extreme burnout and a traumatic event at work that led to PTSD. I've been off work since August 2024 and received LTD benefits in 2024. I'm in the own occupation category for a total of 2 years before it moves to any occupation. Okay. It's become clear to me that I will be unable to return to my own occupation given the very specific triggers associated with it. Without revealing too much personal information on the nature of my injury, I also have very specific triggers about working for an employer or someone who has authority over me and would likely ultimately work for myself to avoid this. I want to get on with my life and retrain. Right now, I would be happy. Right now, I'd have the capacity to learn for a couple of hours a day in a part time program. This would likely be supported by my medical team. In my case, learning a couple hours a day is much different than going to work for an employer in my own occupation for a couple of hours a day. It would not be possible to attend a job without worsening my symptoms. What is the likelihood that I would be able to maintain my LTD benefits while I attend this program to retrain? I am paying for the program myself. If I don't have the capacity to do it, I stop. If I do, I will have a new career and ability to work for myself and ease into self-employment. I want to get LTD and be I want to get off LTD and be productive. I can't financially afford to lose the benefits for a year while I retrain. Is this possible? Have you heard of this being successful before? Is there anything I should be careful in navigating to look out when doing this? I plan on being completely upfront with my case manager. Okay, yeah, and my health team, of course, but I need to know if my chances of the odds before I decide to bring this up. Okay. Okay. This is a tough one. A lot of this will boil down to what does your insurance policy say? And will the insurance company support this? It is it is something that could be possibly supported with the right medical evidence if the insurer agreed that this is a possibility of success and that your ability to do this program is not indicative of your ability to do any other type of employment. Um, the issue is like whenever you tell the insurer that, you know what, if I could just do this retraining, I will be able to go get a job. Well, they might think, you know what, like we think you have the skills necessary to go get a job without the retraining, right? This is the kind of issue you can get into here. Now, I don't have all the details here. This would certainly be something that an insurer will be very reluctant to do to pay somebody LTD while they're going to school. But again, like the specifics matter and the details matter. Certainly, I would encourage you to be completely upfront with your insurer about this and to have your doctor maybe write a note saying, look, that you do have a limited capacity. This is something that you would like to try, but it is uncertain if it's going to be successful, and see if the insurer is willing to do it. The insurer, you could also suggest to the insurer in a case like this that they could get their own vocational person to come have a look at you. Um, you could, if you have the financial means to do this, it sounds like you might not have the financial means to do this, but you could hire your own vocational expert to review your situation and make vocational recommendations around this. And I guess hopefully those recommendations would align with what you're doing, that you don't have the capacity right now to go get a job with your current education level and training. You don't have the capacity to do that. But with this retraining that you would, because you'd be able to work at home, I would caution, like, I don't want to dampen anyone's dreams or plans, but it is also very hard. It's like people who have a disability, sometimes they think the only opportunity is to be able to work for themselves, but running a business and working for yourself is often very difficult to do. Not impossible, but it is very difficult to do under the best of circumstances. To make a success in working for yourself, you often have to work much harder than if you were to go get a job somewhere else. So it's even more difficult to succeed. But again, I don't know what this person's plans are, and I don't want to squash their what they're trying to plan here. I would just point that out, that it is very difficult to do a self-employment. Um, and again, if you have some capacity for self-employment, the insurer will say, even if you're not making money in self-employment, if you have capacity to do the work, they will say, look, you should just be working somewhere else. Now, you've said the type of triggers you have, that you can't work under anyone in authority and these kinds of things. That's an unusual, not if not if I've heard of it before. Certainly I've come across it, but it isn't a more unusual type of restriction. You would need a lot of medical evidence to back that up for people to accept that, because this is a simple thing that you could say in order to just avoid certain types of work environments. So if I'm assuming this person does have medical backup for that, That would be the type of restriction an insurer would be very reluctant to accept. So even if you had medical backup, they might challenge that. But again, it would boil down to the medical evidence. So I'm going to let other people reply to this before I chime in. But it is a very reasonable question, and I would encourage this person to move ahead with this plan. Certainly, if they were on CPP disability, it doesn't indicate that here, but then you would want to notify them as well. But you would want to talk to it first with your start by talking to your doctor about it and making sure that your doctor is going to support you in saying these triggers, that really self-employment is the only opportunity because of the difficulty you have working under other people's authority and things like that. Again, that's a very unusual thing to claim. And so you would need to have your doctors really behind you on that and being able to give a good medical basis for that type of claim. Otherwise, the insurers are just not going to buy that. And they're going to say, look, like you should just go get a job somewhere else if you're able to work, if you're able to do school and part-time, maybe you can do part-time work. Another factor here that will matter is what is this person's pre-disability income. If this person had a very high pre-disability income, then this whole idea makes more sense that they may have to do this retraining and things like that. Also, it just depends on what their education level is. Like they may already have an education level that would allow them to go do other types of work without having retraining. So there's so many factors going on here. I guess where I would tell this person to start with your doctor, get their support, then have the doctor write something to the insurer that supports you in trying to do something like this, but also indicating that there is a lot of limitations and that it's not certain that you would succeed and that they still do not feel that you're capable of returning to work, to your own occupation at this point. Okay. Okay. Very good question. It's always tough when you're in this situation. Medical coordinator. What does this say? Hi, all. Wondering if someone here could offer info on this topic as I couldn't find much. I'm on LTD for, what does it say here? I'm on LTD for 4 years, on CPP-D for almost 2 years. LTD case managers on my file changed many times over the years, but they've all been very aggressive. And even after getting the Canada pension, they've never eased up. I've been told now that I will be getting a medical coordinator that is going to help me with services that I may need. I'm okay with that. So my case manager who went on to mention that I don't have a choice but to comply with it. Okay. Now that it was put that way, it makes me think that this isn't something that's a good thing for me, but more of their tactics to find some kind of fault with my claim. Does anyone have any experience with a medical coordinator? What do I need to know? No, I think this person's instincts are correct. So let's so I'm going to say I think their instincts are correct. So they're going to try to improve your function with the goal of return to work. And an insurer doesn't invest money in something like this unless return to work is their goal. The case manager is likely correct that you have an obligation under the insurance policy to comply this request and to follow the recommendations of the medical coordinator. Now, that being said, this is not always a bad thing. Okay, so with that in mind, I recommend everyone go into this with good faith efforts. The medical coordinator may conclude that you are incapable of returning to work. So that actually can come out in your favor. Okay, so I'm going to put that answer in. There we go. There we go. Okay, those were the 2 new questions. I'm going to let this other one go. I'd like other people to give advice on this retraining before I chime in there. Again, I don't want to like ruin this person's hopes and dreams of being able to get back to work, and they could very well be successful with that. It's just such a hard thing to do. It's very hard. But I mean, and when you're in that point, what else can you actually do? What else can you do? Oh, here's one here. Oh, thanks for clarification. This person wanted to know about, yeah, this person was offered a settlement offer by CPP Disability and wanted to know about whether they should accept the offer. And I had said that 99.999% of the time it's safe to accept the offer, because with a settlement with CPP Disability, it's not like an injury settlement where there's some negotiation over how much you should get. Like with CPP, they're offering to approve your case. So really, the only reason they need to do it as a settlement is because up until the point that your case gets to the Social Security Tribunal, Service Canada can just unilaterally approve your case at any time without your agreement. It doesn't matter. They'll just approve it. However, once it's to the tribunal, it is now before like this outside agency. They can't just approve your case while it is still going before the tribunal. They have to have your consent to withdraw it from the tribunal. Okay. That's the problem. So they offer a settlement, and they call it a settlement, but it's really like, as long as you agree with these basic facts, then we are going to approve the case. And the basic facts are usually like, what is the date of disability? That's the only thing that really can be in dispute. Because when they're approving it, they're not even telling you like what the benefit amount is or anything like that. The only thing really in dispute is like the date of disability is the main thing. And most of the time, there's not going to be any practical dispute over that. Sometimes if there is a dispute, it won't change the amount of money you get anyway. So there's no real reason to dispute it. But that would be the only reason to dispute it. I've had one where there was a dispute, and it would made the difference of a couple months of benefits to but I told the client it's not even worth really fighting that, because they're offering to approve your case. Now it's unlikely, but if you reject their offer, then your case will go ahead, and wouldn't that be terrible if they offer to approve your case, you go to a hearing and the judge says, no, I've reviewed everything and I don't think you should get it. So then now like, what? Oh, now you're really in a mess. So usually it's not worth disputing these settlement offers unless there's a lot of money at stake for disputing it. All right. One more unread one. Yeah. This is one. What does Manulife mean by your file will be closed? So this is, people have different, I don't know if I responded to this one or not. Yeah, it looks like I did. I said here, like whenever you hear that your file is going to be closed, that just means that it doesn't have any real effect. It just means that you have the right to appeal, that they're closing your case. It doesn't mean you have lost all your rights to do anything. That's what people, it's misleading language, and the insurance companies, really, they shouldn't use that type of language, but that is the language they use. It can be misinterpreted to think that you have no rights, but you do have a right to appeal the claim. And if your appeal is successful, they will have to reopen it, right? So I think in this case, they were closing the claim because they didn't get the forms that they wanted. So it's a very dramatic thing to say. We're going to be closing your claim. We didn't get the appeal. We didn't get the forms that you were supposed to send. You have rights. You just have to follow up with them. Okay. All righty, folks. If there's no other questions, then I'll call it a day. We'll be back here next week, next Monday again, talking about disability claims and employment cases. I will, if you think of something in the meantime, you can always email in your questions to our support team at support@resolutelegal.ca. They pass those on to me, especially if you want me to review a form or something like that. I'm happy to do so on the air. It gives me things to talk about. So if you have anything you need me to review, I'm happy to do it on the air. I will. I purposely will black out, like redact out. I don't want to use name certain insurance companies and all these kinds of things. So if you send me things with their name on it, I'll always black that stuff out. But feel free to move to send things in if you want me to review them. I will see you folks back here next time. It's great hanging out with you here this afternoon. Take care.